Yes, we are live. We are back with the quarterly report. Juliet, Alex, great to see you too. What's going on?
So great to see you, Eric. And I'm right now coveting Alex's hat. That's where I am in my mind. I'm wondering what it is, and I would like one.
Yeah. So, Alex, what's your hat?
So this is a local artist, and she does these hats in a lot of cases with wildlife on them. And so this is a bighorn sheep.
Okay.
Or the skull of a bighorn sheep, a former bighorn sheep. And yeah, there's a lot of bighorn sheep around in the elk refuge here in Jackson. They're kind of, say, one of our neighbors, and there's about 50 of them out there in the winter. Then they go up, into the mountains. But anyway, yeah, so bighorn sheep and a local artist.
Very cool. Very
really cool.
Well, let's hear what's new with you guys. It's been 3 months we recorded last. Juliet, what's going on in the Starett world? What's new with you?
Oh man, I mean, we launched our kind of durability longevity program called the Starett System in January, and that's been going really well, and learning a ton about where people are and where they need support, and really sort of appreciating that our hypothesis was that there was a gap between information and implementation, and I think that is turning out to be true. We've really seen a lot of people very excited about having a holistic plan to adopt, the biggest levers of health and do that in a supportive community. So it's been really fun to coach people. Since we closed our gym in 2020, we've done a lot of coaching, but we haven't done a strength and conditioning coaching program. So it's been really fun for us to kind of get back to our roots as strength and conditioning coaches and meet people on that front. So that's been kind of the focus of our attention, and trying to get into some skiing. But as we talked about, it hasn't been as epic as we could have hoped. So, and then the only other thing is I'm still deep in college water polo recruiting with my daughter. And that's a weird process. But I was lucky enough to be able to go to Harvard with her. And I kind of doubt she's going to go and play water polo at Harvard, but that was really a special experience.
Yeah, Harvard.
It's
really, really cool. We got to play against them in college and swim against them. And we had to go to the Harvard campus. It was
very cool. It was cool. We were actually toured around. One last story. We were toured around by a kid who was a dual enrolled Berklee School of Music Harvard student, also on the men's water polo team, and this phenom cellist. And I was like, well, it's quite like any other school we've toured. This kid was definitely a phenom, to say the least. It was really fun.
Awesome. Alex, how about you, man? What's been going on?
Well, it was fun to see you in LA in February, and at the Connected Health and Fitness Summit, which was, I always enjoy it. I reconnect with old friends and colleagues, and then meet new people. And LA is always got interesting things happening. It was a little futuristic this time. I went to Pause and got a robotic massage from
Escape.
I've heard about those. How was it?
So it is really good. It's really good. It doesn't, as with many of these experiences, it doesn't replace a human. It can't do what a human massage therapist can do in terms of, just accessing certain parts of the body. I'm not going to make any, off-color jokes here. So don't expect.
Leave those to me, Alex.
Don't be disappointed. Yeah. But the overall experience is excellent, and it is a great option, I would say, to get massage on a more regular basis, more cost affordably, but you can't replace a human massage therapist with the robot yet. And the other couple of things, I went to the e-gym facility. It's not e-gym technically, but it's basically a 100% e-gym facility in terms of the equipment, and that's quite futuristic and really. I was impressed. It really works in terms of the assessment and then the measurement and the programming, and obviously that so one time assessment that I did, and I don't I didn't do the personal workouts, but it was great. Philip was there. It was great to see him and meet him in person. And then the other thing I did was I had never been in a Waymo, and I got to say, that was pretty damn good too. So 3 robotic experiences.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
I've been
sound
in
naive.
one Waymo in San Francisco, and it's a wild and cool experience.
What is it? I'm naive.
It's
What is
a
it?
self-driving car
don't
that
know
you can pick. You're like, nope,
Nope.
not for me. Yeah, you can basically call one the same way you can call an Uber. I will say, I don't know about you, Alex, I don't know if you got on like the 405 in LA or something. I felt fine doing it like in the city, but I don't know. I feel like if I'd gotten on the freeway and gone at any speed, somehow that might have made me uncomfortable. But I know people who take it to the airport and seems to work.
In LA, they don't go on the highways. So they only go on the local
city
road.
streets. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't have to deal with that, but it's a driverless Uber basically, Eric. And it's the Jetsons, but it's here.
That's wild. I've heard about it. Yeah. Obviously, it's not something that I'm looking forward to. I think it's nice I like the conversations I have with my Uber drivers. And yeah, so, well, it was great seeing you, Alex, as always. And, I missed your panel, unfortunately, but I'm sure it was outstanding, and the connected health and fitness. And, for me, it's just been all about getting as much skiing as I can in between podcasting stuff and, supporting my local après scene. So that's all I can really put out there, but it's been great ski season so far. And it's awesome to see. I've been researching this for this episode for a little while. And real quick too, I will be releasing shortly an interview with Eric Lippman, the Escape the Robot Massage founder and CEO. So people can listen in on what that's all about. It was really interesting. So we have some stuff to talk about today. We're going to go over quarterly reports, right? We have Lifetime, we have Planet Fitness, we have Peloton. We don't have Exponential Fitness yet. So in lieu of, or in addition to, we're going to add Garmin, which I think is really interesting because they're one of my favorite brands, actually.
Me too.
Completely, like across the board, just one of my favorite brands. So that's really exciting. Then we're going to talk about maybe some updates on things that are at the top of our mind as far as like some GLP-1 updates as research continues to flow out, and anecdotal and real research and all those things. There's a lot of updates seem to flying out there every week. And then we're going to talk about the new Secretary of Health and what that may mean for the industry. I think a lot of people are really keen on what may happen, especially in our industry, is, do we have the political will to do some of these things that we've really been talking about for decades? Or is it a bunch of smoke? We don't know yet, but we'll talk about it. So let's kick it off with our good old friend at Lifetime. Yeah, Alex, you want to start us off? What do you think about Lifetime?
Yeah, so Lifetime is firing on all cylinders, I'd say, and their stock is, let's see, it's up 40% year to date. So they're trading around $31. They went public at 23 in 21, and then they dipped down into the teens, and now they're at an all-time high. The reason is that they're growing well. In last quarter, about 19% growth, same club growth. So the clubs that are over a year grew at 14%, which is really phenomenal. Their EBITDA cash flow grew at 29%. They had, they didn't open that many clubs last year, and they'll open more this year. But I think they decided last year that they were going to be a little bit more conservative on capital expenditure and show that they could generate free cash flow, which the market, Wall Street, I think, wanted to see and liked to see. And a couple of things that are really impressive, the dropout rate, so the churn is the lowest in last calendar year, was the lowest it's ever been for them. So in 30 some years of operation, their members are sticking with them longer than ever. And, I think that's a testament to just how well they're running their clubs and how well they're taking care of their members, and how, they're investing in in pickleball and longevity services and, just trying to serve their members in new and interesting and effective ways. So great results.
Yeah, it looks great across the board for them. What do you think, J-Star?
Yeah, I mean, two things I noticed. One of them that I learned from you, Alex, in doing these podcasts is that cash is king. So when I saw that they had a positive free cash flow this year, I thought that was good because we've been talking about how they spent maybe too much money in 2023 on, capital expenditure. So I was like, yes, Lifetime. I think they only opened 8 clubs last year. And then I noticed the same thing about churn. Wanted to get your respective thoughts. I think you, I had many of the same thoughts you did. And then I also wondered if part of their really wonderful or lower churn rates they're seeing now can at least be attributed to all of this information that we are now been privy to over the last 2 or 3 years about what really matters in terms of health and longevity, and this huge emphasis on strength and conditioning being kind of the thing. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I can't open my Instagram without seeing a clip of Atia, not even on his own podcast, just clips being shared far and wide saying, exercise, strength and conditioning is the thing. It is the thing. And, again, obviously that's my own algorithm, but I really wondered if maybe if they weren't the beneficiaries of this massive amount of information showing how, I think we sort of knew this, but somehow it seems to be more part of our public conversation over the last 3 or 4 years. So I wondered if that was positively impacting their business.
It's got to play a part, right? Without a doubt, just this pursuit of lifelong fitness and strength and all that. I think it's very different than the conversation we would have had 10 years ago, which was fat loss, right? And that seems to be, to me, the critical one. I think it stood up on this one, to me, is the revenue per membership hit record levels. So they're really looking at, revenue per member, lifetime value of, no pun intended, but like that's something where, as a gym owner in a very, very speck of sand compared to what Lifetime was. But as soon as I started focusing on those numbers, I saw a lot more success in my business. Was how much is each, client worth? How much are they spending with me? And what's the lifetime value, the retention? All those things kind of go into running a very excellent business versus focusing on lead generation and acquisition, which are all important. I mean, this, Alex, just as good as anybody. But I think that's really cool. And I like how they maintain this high price point, high value, which, I think there's a time and place we'll get to Planet, as far as the opposite of that, kind of the low cost, high volume model. But I've always feel like in our industry, we undervalue ourselves to the nth degree, right? All the time. And seeing, someone like Lifetime continue to raise the rates, continue to raise, the average member value, that's really cool to me. I think it bodes well for where we're trying to go, which is at the forefront of health. So I liked it. Any other comments on Lifetime?
Their average member is spending around $3,200 a year.
That's awesome.
So, it's $200 of dues per month, and then some ancillary spend on top of that for personal training or supplements or other things. And they're going about 12 times a month on average.
That's great.
Yeah. 3 days a week.
It's great.
That's amazing.
Yeah. When we talk about Planet, it's about half that. But, it used to be that clubs didn't really want their members to show up.
Yeah, it was like the 24-hour fitness model. Just like get as many members who don't come as possible.
Yeah. Long-term contracts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Lifetime started out in that fairly low price position. They were about $50, $60 a month, and they were building really big clubs even back then, but they were doing high volume. And now they've sort of pushed into the the Four Seasons category where the Ritz-Carlton, that's kind of what they're doing. That's the only challenge with the growth there. How many units can the Four Seasons have? How many neighborhoods can afford that? But, he says his pipeline's as robust as ever, and I have no reason, not to believe him. And if he's only doing 10 units a year, they should be able to keep growing for, a long time.
Awesome. I love it. Big fan of Lifetime.
Yeah,
Well,
me too.
let's talk about Planet. Major trends, I think, for them, massive membership growth, club expansion, revenue and EBITDA growth. Yeah, a lot going on, a lot of positive things. So yeah, lead us off with that one, Alex. What do you see for Planet?
So Planet, their stock's been lackluster. It's down about 5%. Year to date and over the last 3 months, but for the year, over the course of a year, it's up 52%. So I think that last year was tricky with and the year before with management changes and an interim CEO, and now their new CEO's in the driver's seat as of June, and she's hired. They've beefed up their C-suite. They hired a chief marketing officer and a chief development officer, and she's starting to execute on her strategy. She comes from hospitality, and so I think, the challenge with Planet versus a Lifetime's founder is still running the business, and he knows his customer, he knows his markets, he knows the history of the industry. A new CEO coming from outside has there's a learning curve. And we'll have to see. It's still early. They did grow last year, not as much as they had in the past. So they're not back at pre-COVID growth rates. They were adding 200 clubs, 200 plus a year. They were at 150 last year, and I know it sounds like a lot, but Wall Street is not. They're not impressed with that number because it's less than it used to be. You always have to show bigger numbers. That's the challenge. Overall, it's a really healthy, successful business, and the fact that the stock is not, the growth isn't impressing Wall Street doesn't mean that it's not a great company.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would add is it's hard for me as a former gym owner myself not to see 1 million new members and have a little twinkle in my eye. I was really impressed by that.
Right.
And also when I appreciate Wall Street doesn't like it, but I mean, I've seen some Planet Fitness, and they're not as big and fancy as Lifetimes, but they tend to be really big facilities still. So I also thought, man, when I saw 160 or 70 new club openings, I thought that was also impressive. I mean, these are huge facilities. These aren't little boutique, 3,000, 4,000 square foot facilities. These are huge facilities with a massive amount of equipment in them. And so, I got a twinkle in my eye about the 1 million new members. I was impressed by that.
Alex, if
they opened a few clubs in Spain that they said are doing really well, which is interesting. And they said that engagement, like usage, was going up a bit. It had gone, I think, 23, it was 6 times a month, and went up to about 6.5 times a month in 24. They're adding some strength equipment, and so it's a big ship. I mean, it's a big ship. If you want to turn it in different directions, it's going to take a while. But I think, we talked last time about the brand positioning, where she wanted to make it more inclusive of folks who were maybe more expert or advanced, fitness folks and athletes. And that remains to be seen whether that positioning is going to pay off or not.
Yeah, she must have been listening to this podcast, right? Didn't we talk about that? Yeah,
We did.
yeah. 19.7 million members. That's just a staggering amount of influence and an opportunity. And I want a question for you, Alex, because you were in the health club world. If you're going to start a model right now, today in 2025, would you lean towards more of the Lifetime model or lean more towards the Planet low cost, high volume? What would you do?
Yeah, that's a great question.
I like a business that really focuses on outcomes, I think. And I think a business like Planet can get people started, which is critical too. I mean, it's critical, super critical to get more people off the couch. But then how do you progress people? How do you advance people? And I think a business, a high touch business like Lifetime, with a lot of touch points, a lot of great trainers, a lot of registered dietitians, they can produce overall more impact, I think, in terms of outcomes. But that's just, my bias. I mean, I think they're both doing great work.
Yeah, they both serve the right, different populations at the right time. And, it seems like almost like a Planet Fitness is like the entryway to health and fitness, right, for a lot of people. So interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see Planet have, a really accessible price point and, structure and programs and that really, help their members stick with it, stay engaged, and progress. But those are tough to combine.
Yeah, I mean, it would be really, of course, they don't have any data on this, but of course, it would be really interesting to see what outcomes there actually are at a Planet, right? Are people getting more fit? Are they getting stronger? Are they losing weight? Are any of the metrics that people are looking for when they join a gym improving? Are they going often enough to see those changes?
Yeah, it'd be interesting if eGym ever broke into Planet Fitness.
Yeah, they have so much data.
I love that.
Yeah.
I would love to see that. Go eGym. How about Peloton? What are some things I saw, like strength workouts are becoming a focus for Peloton. I think that all makes us smile, right? A little bit more focus on men's membership was an interesting note. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff I think going on in Peloton. I think they seem to be showing the right signs. But Juliet, what do you think? What was your initial thoughts on Pelotons?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like this was the first time I read the report where I was like, okay, things seem to be trending in the right direction. I was like, there's hope here. And they've actually tried out some things. This rental model, I think it was in the UK, actually seemed to be working well or starting to work well. They're not spending as much money building equipment. They do seem to be focusing on their app, which I think is great. And so, yeah, I felt actually sort of optimistic about Peloton. I think for the first time since we began these calls, I thought, okay, there's something here. Like they might actually be able to dig out of this hole they've been in for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
What do you think, Alex?
Takeaway.
So new CEO, it was his first, he just started January 1st. So it was his first earnings call. And he talked about member happiness and customer happiness, which, is not really what the analysts respond to. But I think it's the right thing to talk about because, if you can hold on to the members you have and you have 2.9 million of them, you can keep your churn super low. They keep paying $44 a month or more if he decides to raise the price. They're engaged. The software keeps getting better. The content keeps getting better. It costs money, but it's not, huge investments versus lifetime building 120,000 square feet of athletic facilities. So the stock has not been performing that well as of late. It's, let's see, year to date down about 15%, but it is up 60% in the last 12 months. So, so that's good. Their churn is staying really low. So members continue to be, to be engaged and sticky. He did say that, and the numbers, don't lie. The number of members is declining a little bit, not much. I'd say it's flat-ish, but down a little bit. And he wasn't bullish on top line growth until next year. So that, that's the analysts on Wall Street. I'm not going to be super happy about that. And then how do you grow the business, right? If you think about, selling more bikes, selling more treadmills, selling more, is there demand for that? Or have they pretty much tapped out? They found their 3 million members and,
Right.
they're they're done. There are businesses like that, right? Where it's just the demand is sort of tapped out. So I don't believe it is. And if you go back and listen to John Foley, the founder, not that he has a lot of credibility anymore, but his goal was 100 million members, and he thought he was going to take most of the gym members, basically. They were going to all be buying Peloton equipment. But anyway, that's so I think he's, he seems like he's a really strategic person, and super serving existing members makes a lot of sense to me.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really interesting. One thing I didn't understand from a product standpoint when they talk about strength. So is that like strength is within the app? So they do their Peloton, but maybe they go to a gym and they follow a strength program through the Peloton app, or is there actually strength-based content that they're doing? That was unclear to me. Did anybody catch that exactly? Like how they are how they were adding strength into the programming?
They have strength workouts on content.
Okay.
Most they can be done at home or they can be done at the gym.
Okay.
They do have programs, strength programs that you can do at the gym. I think they said about 75% as many strength workouts as cycling workouts. So that's
a lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of strength workouts.
Yeah. Really interesting.
It could be 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15, whatever, but it's probably not.
And let's just say that this is what they have. They have 3 million members, right? This is it. They're going to serve them well. They'll probably be around for a while. How does Wall Street react to a company like that? That's no longer showing exponential growth. Like, does it just fade into the dark? Like what happens?
I mean, there aren't that many businesses, wouldn't say, that are public that don't have a growth profile. I mean, there are quote unquote value type businesses that grow a bit, like McDonald's or something. It's not a high growth business, very profitable. They pay dividends. They grow consistently, single digit, and it's for more conservative type investors. So it could be that. It could be that. I wouldn't be surprised though. I mean, they do throw off a lot of cash. They could buy other things. They could buy Tonal. They can definitely add. They could combine, if they want to become more of a social sort of network, they could buy Strava or combine with Strava. That would kind of be interesting. So I'm sure they'll come up with some ideas, and maybe M&A is part of it. They haven't really succeeded with other equipment yet. I think the tread is progressing, but it's nowhere near the bike in terms of numbers. I think the rower was kind of a flop, and so it'll be, I think, a few 12 months or so before we find out what the growth strategy is. I think right now it's just maximizing the value of the existing members.
Awesome. Garmin. I'm excited for this one. I've been a Garmin user forever. I'm a stockholder. I just love everything about it. I love their whole ecosystem. Really, it's so seamless in so many different ways. The only thing I would say is like from what I have, their watches don't have the best heart rate monitors, but I know they're working on that. So anyway, I love Garmin. So this was really fun, and I'm excited. I mean, they crushed it. Yeah.
And I just have to interject, Eric. I'm the same way. I don't feel like I'm a huge fan of that many brands.
Same.
But Garmin is definitely at the top of my list. And I've been wearing a Garmin for as long as I can remember. And, I have this one that I bought before the pandemic, and it still works perfectly and does everything I need, which I realize may not be great for their business model, making these products that are so good that they last so long.
Yeah.
But man, I mean, they make really high quality, awesome stuff. And it just keeps getting better. And being able to read their reports and see how much they slayed was really cool.
Yeah. I have a Phoenix 5 watch that I've had for about 4 or 5 years now. And I think I could use it as a hammer.
Yep.
And then it would still work. Like, that's how durable this thing is. So kudos to them for a job well done. But yeah, I mean, everything about it we'll get about. I mean, they had a record year, right, Alex? I mean, it was a banner year.
Yeah, I mean, their market capitalization is in the 40 billion range. So they're on in a different universe from the companies that we normally talk about. I mean, it's at a different level. It's impressive how much their fitness category has grown.
Yeah.
And that is different from their outdoor category, right?
Yeah, which has also grown a ton.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just, it's not a company I follow that closely, but the impact they're having in fitness is impressive, right? I mean, it's, I think they're behind Apple and Google in terms of market share, but in terms of profitability from those, those categories, I bet they're ahead. Yeah. So it's pretty crazy how many SKUs they have, how many different options.
Yeah. I mean, they have fitness, outdoor, aviation, marine, auto, OEM. I don't think people realize when they hear about Garmin, number one, how long it's been around. I interviewed one of their executives a couple of years ago, and even as a lifelong fan of their products, I was blown away. I'm like, wow, yeah, I forget. Like, they really started in like marine, and then they have all of these deep specialties, like their diving watches and things like that. Like it's deep specialties. And one of the things I gathered from the interview, and then meeting a lot of people from the Garmin teams as I journey around and talk to people, was like, they love it. Like if someone's in like let's say the diving component, like they're divers, like they're building stuff for themselves and continue to optimize it, which I think is a really cool quality of a company, especially one that size. Like they're huge. And yeah, I mean, I look at some of these numbers, and a % dividend increase backed by a cash balance of 3.7 billion. That's pretty good, right? I don't know. I mean, we come from the fitness industry. We're like shocked with these numbers, right?
Yeah, I was shocked because, I'm used to reading Planet Fitness and a lot of Peloton. Yeah, I mean, one of the things, this has nothing to do with their earnings or how much they're crushing as a company, but for me as a consumer, I tried to switch over to Apple because I liked the mold screen, and I was like, it's compatible with all my devices. But in the end, I feel like I get this, like the beauty of having what feels like an analog device. It actually, like, I can go on a backpacking trip and it stays charged. And at the same time, I can still get all that other stuff, track my workouts, track my mountain bike rides, syncs to Strava. So I get all the techie cool stuff that I like and all the data I want. But at the same time, it, like, on a day-to-day basis, just feels like I'm wearing an analog actual watch, and I don't have to charge it every single day or even every few days. That to me is like one of the reasons why it just crushes the Apple Watch for me anyway, and my uses. Yeah. I love it.
There's definitely, I think once you get Garmin, if you're into the, especially the type of lifestyle, if it suits your lifestyle, and we talked about all those different kind of microcosms of particular styles of lifestyle. Can I say that? Styles of life? Anyway, if you get it, you stay with it for a very long time. Like, I don't think I'll ever wear a watch other than Garmin. And I don't think whenever I'm using outdoor things or heart rate straps or, whatever it may be, activity or scuba diving, or even my dog's shock collar is a Garmin, right? That's how diverse their product line is. Once you get into the Garmin ecosystem, you love it. And once you learn like their operating system and stuff like that, it's a little tricky to maneuver at first, but once you get it, you get it. So yeah, it's kudos. I just really have to see these guys being successful.
Yeah, they haven't done a ring yet. I'm expecting them to jump into that category. I saw Oura just came out with their 4th generation ring, and Samsung's got one now. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were looking at that. Yeah, they definitely, in the fitness world, they have to be just dominating. And I don't know how there's room for Whoop and, I guess it's a little different, but doesn't Garmin do the same readiness scores and sleep?
They're all similar. I mean, it's similar. Yeah. You can get a sleep score, and
I think they do a stress score called body battery. It's all different names, different things, but it tells you, tracks the same data and just delivers in a different way. And, I've gone through my share of wearables. I love testing them. I love seeing them all. And I still think Oura, for the casual person who just wants to know more about their health, from form factor to the way it delivers the information and the data to you in a very nice, easy way to digest. I still think I have both. But I think for, people who really start to get into it and really want to go deep into these niches or just have something that'll last a long time, especially battery life. That's something that Garmin's known for. I would charge my watch every 1.5 to 2 weeks. That's incredible. I use it all the time. So I think there's a lot of things that Garmin has figured out. And battery life is number one. So yeah, from a product standpoint, I love it. Any final thoughts on Garmin before we get into some of the more controversial topics of the day?
No,
I think I'm going to invest.
You should.
I still go with the Swiss watch. I haven't switched over to digital yet. Maybe someday.
Yeah. Well, it's like a 57 Chevy.
Kelly loves watches from a fashion perspective. He's not like a fashion guy, with the one exception of he loves a nice watch. So, he's the outlier fitness person who will never wear a fitness watch of any kind. If he's wearing a watch, it's like a cool Italian watch or something,
I love it. Well, let's do, before we get into MAHA, MAHA, is that how I say it? I don't think I've ever said it out loud. MAHA. Yeah, I just read it. Let's talk about, there was a great article that you sent over, Alex, from I think it was the Washington Post, right? Entitled "Weight Loss Drugs Aren't Just Slimming Waist, They're Shifting the Economy" by Ariana Shaw. So I would urge people to go look it out. It was released on February 23rd, 2025. But you and I think, sat next to each other at a panel at Connected Health and Fitness, Alex, and it was a longevity panel. And one of the things, or the GLP-1, panel, was a lot of conversation around this. The room was packed. Everyone wanted to know what was going on. The big question that I had was, okay, well, this is all great, but is it actually sending people to the gym? Are people increasing their fitness? Are they changing their lifestyle, right? Or are they just taking the magic pill and they're calling it a day? So from this, we had some really interesting feedback on that by their answers. And I'm just going to read one quick thing. It said 35% of weight loss drug users surveyed said they are exercising for the first time or more than before. And 16% hired a personal trainer for the first time or having those sessions more often than before. So
it's awesome.
Yeah.
It was the theory in the room. One of the ones that I have heard is that, once you lose a little bit of weight, you actually feel well enough to move and you have a desire to move, and that is huge. And that just the loss of 20 or 30 pounds is just enough weight loss to feel good moving and not feel insecure walking through the doors of the gym, and that there's all these peripheral things that are driving that. But that's actually great to hear, those numbers.
Yeah, I'll publicly eat crow if this is true, because I've been one who's very outspoken about, I don't think it's going to change human behavior. I just don't see it. I don't think people are going to start easily losing weight and then all of a sudden be like, oh, now I want to do the hard stuff, right? I just didn't see it. And that's very skeptical. That just comes from running a gym and coaching people too. It's like human behavior is very difficult to change. Yes. It is, So, if all of this is coming true and this research continues to fold out, I will publicly say I was wrong. And I am super happy that I'm wrong, because, it seems to be going in a direction. So I don't know, Alex, what were your thoughts? You sent the article. What was your thoughts?
Well, I love that. I love that research, that data point. I'm sure there's, you'd have to dig into the numbers to see if it's, if it's a big sample or whatever. But the other thing that jumped out at me was the Goldman Sachs prediction that potentially 60 million people could be taking the medication by 2028. So in 3 years, and that would boost GDP by 1% or several $1 trillion. So I haven't, dug into that report either, but, I did also notice that Elon Musk made a statement a few months ago that the smartest thing the U.S. government could do would be to get the price of GLP-1s down, and he's on it. He's acknowledged that, but he thought that could be the smartest, best investment of any that the U.S. government could do, because of all the knock-on benefits that you get from lower obesity rates.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, I don't know if you guys saw, but I think last year was the first year in, I don't know how many years since they've been, late 80s, I think, where the actual national obesity rate was trending down.
Right.
which,
Right.
If you translate that into dollars and cents, that's a massive amount of, that's massive, right? From a healthcare standpoint and an overall health standpoint, and increase in just people moving and joining gyms. I do think it could. I'm real 50-50, by the way, Eric, on this, whether it is going to change behavior. I will say I heard a story from my dear friend, Jen Wiederstrom, who is a sort of famous LA-based personal trainer. And she runs a strength and conditioning. She still personal trains people and runs a strength and conditioning center. And LA is a unique place, so I don't know if it's a good data point, but she actually had a client come in who said that her friends were actually making fun of her because she was still trying to go to the gym. And why would she do that when she could just be taking GLP-1s and be thin? So I think that story, it's not data-based, but it did feed a little bit of my skepticism as well. And at the same time, I just heard, speaking of Attia, I keep quoting Attia today, but I just heard him say on a podcast that it's pretty clear now that, I think we have enough data to know that the moment people are coming off these, they're gaining weight back. So it is this, if you're getting on it, you're on it for the rest of your life. So is that sustainable? And then I do think I think we were worried it was sort of an early knock on GLP-1s that you were losing lean mass. And I think that there's data coming out to actually support that you are losing a ton of lean mass. And so it's going to be really interesting to see. I mean, it's great if 16% are hiring a personal trainer, but, obviously from an outcome standpoint, being thin and then losing a ton of lean mass and becoming frail. And, is the pendulum going to swing in the wrong direction in terms of our health? I don't know, but I thought both those were interesting points.
And the panel that you and I saw, Alex, in LA, and then some of the data that I see in here were different, right? I remember very clearly some statistics from the panel of 1 in 8 Americans are on some sort of GLP-1 or semaglutide. And I mean, that's a lot, more than they said here. I don't know, I can't pull the exact number, but it's more, substantially more. One of the things they also mentioned in the panel that we saw was that
6% in the story.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 6%. Okay, so big difference, right? The other thing was that on average, the cost of food or the spending on food goes down $30 to $60 per week per person on one of these drugs.
I thought
fundamentally shifting the economy.
Yep.
In a major way. So it's going to be really interesting to see the trickle down economic effects of this long term and what that means. Yeah, it was all over. Like in every conversation I have within our industry, GLP-1s comes up on the chairlift, right? When I'm skiing, it comes up, at dinner parties, it comes up at events, it comes up in interviews. It's just ubiquitous across all conversations nowadays because I think it's one of the most fundamental things, piece of technology that we've seen in our lifetime. So it's crazy.
It's crazy. I don't know if you know.
We're going to keep talking about it for a while.
Yeah, we are. We are.
Yeah. And I don't know if I mean, I'm starting to know a lot of people personally who are on it. They have, a lot of these are just these side symptoms, but they have, reported actually feeling low energy though, because they have so low desire to eat and they're so undercaloried because, they have no desire to eat. So they're only eating 1,000 calories a day apart from their lean mass, but that they really are struggling from an energy perspective, which makes sense, right? If you're completely undercaloried and underfueled, you're going to lack energy. And so it's just interesting to see actually having lots of people I know personally starting to take these things and seeing what the impact is, right? And you could deal with low energy and some of the other symptoms maybe on a short-term basis, but then if you have to be on these things for the rest of your life, what does that mean?
Yeah, I think that it was interesting in the article, the focus was on this one user who was actually benefiting from, he changed his diet, added much higher quality protein, and his energy levels were way higher. So I think you got to, and he was working out more. So you have to make some lifestyle changes. You got to figure out the diet. You got to figure out the exercise. And it's not just about taking a pill and being, happy, living happily ever after.
Yeah. And I think he's the ideal. The person they outlined in this article is the ideal, right? He's starting to eat venison and buffalo as his primary protein. Right. He's being shipped from Hawaii because that's the best type. And
Yeah, Maui Nui. Yep.
Maui Nui and all that. And, we didn't even talk, we don't have time to talk about the Hims and Hers commercial during the Super Bowl, which was
Oh my God.
both at first half inspiring, second half just really dumbfounding. And it just made me, it was like my whole rainbow of emotions around Ozempic happened in one commercial. And it was really, so people Google that. But let's move on to the next thing, because you brought up Elon Musk and government and all these things. So that it's really an interesting time to talk about. So we have a new U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services. So RFK Jr. was appointed, right? For the time being, until, Trump changes his mind. But a lot of ramifications for this. And I've interviewed a lot of people, and this comes up is like, okay, we know we have this health pro, and here's my fundamental belief, and then I'll let you guys kind of jump in wherever you want. The conversation like this around the health of our country hasn't been this loud and this numerous in decades, in my mind. Like, the conversation is at least at the forefront. We're talking about, childhood obesity. We're talking about the foods we eat, manufacture of food, our agricultural system. Like, at least these conversations are coming up, and they weren't, to my knowledge, 2, 3, 4 years ago. So it's going to be interesting. But what do you guys think about the appointment? What do you think about the political will that we have right now? Are you optimistic? Where do you stand? And Juliet, I know you and Kelly are big advocates for overall health of our country and our children especially. So start with you. What are you feeling on this?
Yeah, I mean, I feel really mixed about it. I feel really mixed about JFK as a person and a leader. And I think Alex said it best in the pre-roll. I think he has some really good ideas and some really bad ideas all at the same time. And so I don't know how to make sense of those things. I am worried about his ability to actually get his good ideas done, just in this climate. And I mentioned, I just happened to see before this call in the news that they announced that they're going to try to limit the ability to purchase, full sugar soda on Snap, as an example. And in 25 seconds, the soda lobby went in hard. And I don't necessarily see Trump as someone who is going to push back at profitability and push back at big business that much. My prediction is that Trump and RFK are going to have some kind of colossal breakup, maybe sooner rather than later, that they are ultimately not going to see eye to eye, and that RFK won't be able to push forward the things he wants to do in this particular administration. I have no idea why. The only thing I will say, and this really bothered me and made it difficult for me to read the Athletech article that we all shared around about the Trump administration improving the fitness business. And this is, I will say it is nice that we are having this national conversation about health, but I can't talk about this without pointing out that one of the most ambitious nutrition and public health programs, granted it was focused towards kids, but was Michelle Obama's Let's Move campaign. And she did a lot and worked. She had a lot of big initiatives and worked really hard and got a lot of pushback, mostly from conservatives who sort of called her a nanny state for trying to take away ultra processed foods. So I struggle with that. For me, that's a struggle with this, because we have actually had an administration and a leader within the last 10 years really trying to do what was a very ambitious nutrition program. I mean, she planted a huge garden at the White House, and somehow everyone seems to have forgotten about that. As we're talking about, there seems to be this amnesia that this is the first time there's been this national conversation about nutrition and health. So I actually struggled to read that Athletech article, because the guy was like, this is the first time we're having a conversation about public health and obesity. And I was like, no, that's actually not correct. So I struggle with that a little bit. And then the only thing I will say that I struggle with a bit about the MAHA movement in particular is that what I hear coming from that movement is, a focus on things like removing red dyes from foods, legalizing raw milk. I have no problem with that. Of course, I agree we should be doing those things. But to me, those things are the minors and not the majors. If the MAHA movement was coming forward saying, let's make school start times 8:30 a.m. nationwide, no matter what. Let's make every high school kid have to take a year-long cooking class. Let's make physical education mandatory and paid for by the federal government. I think there are some swings we could take from a public health standpoint that would have a massive positive difference. And I do think the place to start a lot of that is with kids. Because I think if we can actually develop a population of kids who know how to cook, and know how to move and like to move, maybe we aren't having these conversations. So I think that's a struggle I have, is that to me, if we really want to make massive change, those would be the swings I would take anyway. And again, of course, I have no problem if we remove red dyes from Fruity Pebbles. I don't eat Fruity Pebbles. So I think it's a really complicated time. I think there's, I'm open-minded. I'm like, if anything anybody does in any administration improves public health, like, I'm all about it. I don't know what's going to happen. It's a crazy time.
It's a crazy time. Alex, what are your takes here?
Well, let's see, coming back to the fitness, the impact on the fitness industry, I would say, RFK Jr. should be a net positive. I would think he's a big, he works at a Gold's Gym in Venice. He goes to, he's probably an Equinox member. So he's a big believer in exercise, and that helps. I think that helps. I think traditionally, the National Institutes for Health did not invest in aging research. It wasn't a category other than Alzheimer's, which I think according to this article, we looked at 70% of the National Institute on Aging's grant dollars went to dementia research, which is, no one's going to argue that that's not critical. But, could it be 35%? And then, spend money on other, deep research into the biology of aging and see what we learn. And then does that, inform how the fitness industry operates in the future a little bit more deeply, around longevity and what really makes a difference to healthy aging versus unhealthy aging. So I think that could be the silver lining. So overall, I think it's a net positive. The vaccine thing is troubling, to say the least. With the measles outbreak in Texas, kids dying, the message has to be different from the message that he has traditionally delivered.
I did think, one thing, and I wondered your the one thing I did like from the Athletech piece was, if there is any hope that RFK will push forward the PIT Act to be able to spend, I think that would be awesome, to be able to spend, tax-free dollars on fitness. I think that would be a huge deal for people. So I'm very pro that. I hope that comes back to life and passes under RFK's leadership.
That could be good.
The FIT Act is, I think, overall, the industry has been talked about for so long. A lot of people I talk to at the executive level they're like, oh, all right.
They don't think it's ever going to happen.
Yeah, no one ever believes it's going to happen. So maybe it will. It's one of those things where, like, if you stop paying attention to it, it happens. But I think there's a lot of people who are pushing it. And, I look at, like, anytime someone comes into office, there's promise, right? And we've all seen. I was looking at, the Executive Order 14211, which is the Make America Healthy Again Commission. The commission aims to investigate the rise in chronic childhood diseases and assess the impact of various medications, including antidepressants and weight loss drugs. Awesome, right? Like, who doesn't want that? That sounds great. Now, what happens in practice and what actually happens? And I was telling you guys prior, like, I've been doing a lot of, over the last week, really kind of diving into the world of RFK Jr. And it's a freaking crazy world. Like, there's, and he admits, like, he was not a saint when he was young. He had struggled with addiction and did a lot of wild, crazy things. He was a Kennedy, right? And reading the real Anthony Fauci, and, I'm about a quarter way through that book and some of the stuff he says. If any of this stuff is true, right? And how big pharma has really firmly implanted itself into our healthcare system and really kind of dictates a lot of things, and big food and big ag and all these things, it's really scary, and it's going to take a lot of work. If he's going to go out there and do this, it might actually take someone who's a little crazy to go out and crusade this. So I think it's we look at the trajectory of how much healthcare will cost this country in the next 10 years.
Out of control.
It's out of control.
Yep.
It's out of control. So whatever, like, I agree, Alex, I think net this, I hope it's got to be positive, right? Like someone's got to take a swing at this. Someone's got to grab the axe and start chopping down this tree because it's going to kill us all. And I know that sounds very alarmist, but the amount of cost it's going to overwhelm our country. And so whatever, I don't know. I've never met the guy. Sometimes I like what he says. Sometimes I'm like, this guy is batshit, but we'll find out. I mean, he's there at least for the time being. So I don't know. I mean, that's
yeah. I mean, I think, oversimplifying any subject matter usually is not helpful. And
yes,
say pharmaceutical companies are all evil. I mean, I suffered from migraine headaches for many years, and the pharma companies came up with migraine drugs, and that was a life changer for me. So, GLP-1s are changing a lot of people's lives. I agree it's ironic or unfortunate that the food companies have created a problem that the pharmaceutical companies are now benefiting from.
Right.
And that's definitely unfortunate. But, for him to be super skeptical of GLP-1s and not encourage the, Medicare, for example, to pay for those seems like a huge loss of an opportunity to help a lot of people.
Yeah, it's complicated. We have created a Gordian knot of, complication here. And, you may be right, Eric. It may just take someone who's batshit crazy to try to figure out how to unravel it. And that's fine. I mean, I think, we really do need to rethink how we're doing things. And, I'm slightly skeptical, just the way you are, about GLP-1s, that we have the political will and that, capitalism makes it difficult for us to make the right choices from a public health standpoint sometimes. But again, man, I hope I'm wrong, because I really do think we need to change it.
Yeah. Well, I truly believe we have, as big as this Gordian knot is, and as big as our problems are with health care in this country, I mean, I think, 70% of all pharmaceuticals in the world are consumed by Americans now. As big as this problem is, we have everything we need to solve it by far and away. Like, we have everything. We have the knowledge, we have the facilities, we have the pharmaceuticals, we have the right foods, we have the ability to grow them if we want, right, in the right ways. So we have everything we need. It just takes the right leadership and the right administration and people to fight against people who may not want those things. They may not want or care about the health of our communities. So it's all there. It's tough. It's a bummer that we got here, but hopefully we can take this with some optimism and say, hey, now's our time, especially as an industry. Like, let's let it empower us to say, hey, there's actually someone up there, Capitol Hill, who's really pushing for this, saying some of the right things, some of the wrong things, saying some of the right things. And maybe we can get behind this and we can use that movement to push forward and do what we always wanted to do, which is get our communities healthier, right? So I don't know. It's going to be interesting. Not going to be boring.
Nope, it is not. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens here.
Well, I think that's just about a wrap, you guys. Any final thoughts as we close it out and look forward to our Q2? Alex, how about you?
I listened to a podcast that was pretty interesting about the title was provocative, that we, human beings did not evolve to exercise. And I'm sure you've seen some of that conversation, but it made me think, that is one of the challenges we're up against, right? Just this resistance that human beings have to effort, when it's not effort that is directed at a critical need: food, safety, reproduction. We've kind of invented this activity, extreme physical activity or structured physical activity, whatever you want to call exercise. Some people seem to have, a percentage of the population seems to have an affinity for it, but a much larger percentage of the population seems to not. And I guess that's what you mean when you say changing human behavior is really, really hard.
It is.
But I think researching, like, what is it about the 20% that seem, people who really like to exercise? What is it? Is it genetics? Is it childhood, things? Is it chemical? Is it bio? What is it? I mean, let's figure that out.
Yeah, we had Jeremy Kooning on our podcast years ago. He's a geneticist, and he did say that there is a genetic drive to move, and that some people have a higher genetic drive to move. But I mean, I sort of appreciate the sentiment of that article. I do think we evolved to move around a lot and often in different ways, but what we do now is kind of fake exercise. And some of us like it and a lot of us don't. And I think you're right. It is, how do we figure that out? How do we help those 80% who don't like it the way we all like it? How do we teach them how to enjoy it?
Yeah. Was it Don Moxley? Well, anyway, I'll credit to Don Moxley, who's a repeat person on my podcast, but there's something critical about the ages like 7 to 10. Like if you're very active in those ages, you're engaged in sports, things like that, your family does a lot of activities, then it tends to stick more often. And I don't know if that's true or not, but it sounds good. It sounds right to me from everyone I know who's, active and into, exercise and sports and recreation. So Julia, any final thoughts for you?
As a father, I, and, my wife as well, we encouraged our kids to be super active, but just a cautionary comment. I did some things to my kids, asked them to do things like fun runs when they were too young and it was too hot. So yeah, be more reasonable than me when you're bringing up your kid.
Yeah.
I did that too, Alex.
On the therapy couch.
I signed Caroline up for track and field when she was 5, and she showed up and the warm-up was run a 400. And if you're 5 and you run a 400, that's like the equivalent of running a marathon. And she switched to water sports, and to this day, would sooner die than run 100 meters. So I made a big mistake there as well. I'm with you.
Yeah.
That's funny. Juliet, any final thoughts for you?
Man, I think what I'm excited, I feel like we've reached this point, we've talked over the years a lot about the increase in interest in strength training, especially in women. And what I'm excited right now by is, now that there is that interest, making sure we actually, speaking of outcomes, Alex, we actually help women figure out how to do the right kind of exercise that's going to make a big difference. Because what I am seeing now is this confusion between what I would call fitnessing with weights, which is a lot of stuff that you see on Peloton and Orange Theory, and a lot of the brands that we love is cool, and I'm pro that kind of workout. But I think sometimes people think if you pick up a weight, that means you're going to put on mass and get stronger. So I don't know. I'm excited about, okay, we've got people at the table ready to have the conversation, and how do we have the conversation about what it actually means to get stronger and put on lean muscle mass? So I don't know. That's what I've been thinking about lately.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'll be at the Health and Fitness Association, formerly IRSA, in a few weeks' time. So see some of the same topics turned over again. I feel like it's, it's always interesting to get other people's views. A lot of stuff I'm able to pull from panels or people I talk to in the hallways and, regurgitate or bring my opinions upon this podcast. So it'll be really interesting to see what the industry has to say. And then I think there's some other really good events this year. I think Athletech's going to be putting something on in June, and they're talking about having some big names coming through, potentially one of the people we talked about today, but we'll let them uncover that one. So that's it. I'm excited for the year. I think it's a really good time. No one really talking about the pandemic days anymore. We're all forward facing. All these reports look really good that we're talking about. And there's a lot of exciting things going on, and it could be a great year. So you guys, thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eric. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Julia. Great seeing you guys.
Bye now.
Likewise.